Well, it turns out I will have to be making these videos separate, otherwise they'd be taking too long to splice together and then upload and be too much on my already limited memory. So, now we've got a beginning of a level set up. We got some walls and floors and pillars, and now we need some different little props. So let's set up like a crate, barrels, vases, standard RPG stuff. So I'm over here in Blender, and I need to turn on that screencast thing real quick. And I'm gonna A to select everything here, X delete. File, I'm gonna import my FBX of my Blender Manny guy right there, just for a scale reference. I'm gonna move him back a little bit. G to grab, Y to move him along the green line. And the first thing I want to do is make a barrel. So I'm going to Shift A and add in a cylinder. Before moving it or clicking off or anything, right here on Add Cylinder, we can click this little opening. For vertices, I don't need it to be this many around, so I'm just going to drop it to 16. That'll be plenty. And then I'm going to click it. And then that little menu will go away. So you can only establish that kind of thing as you first import a thing. 1 on the keyboard to go into front orthographic view, S to scale, Shift Z, so I'm only scaling this way, S and now Z, so I'm only scaling on the Z axis, G to grab it, Z to move it straight up, and then S, I'm going to scale it down to about hip height. Should be fine. So with this selected, tab into edit mode, we can add loop cuts around the middle of it with Control R. This will give you extra vertices to work with. If we scroll up on the wheel, then we get another one. I just need 2, so I'm going to left click to apply that, right click to drop them in the middle, and then to spread them a little bit further out, I'm going to S to scale on the Z axis, and just they will move. So somewhere around there. I'm holding Shift on the keyboard so that it moves a little bit more slowly. Otherwise, that's the difference between Shift and free mouse. So about there is fine. Now I'm going to tap 3 to go into face select. I'm going to grab this face and scale them in a little bit. I'm going to Shift Z so they don't drop on it. Let's see, maybe a little bit more. Just whatever you feel seems barrel-like. Now I'm going to tab back into edit mode, and I'm going to tap I on the keyboard for inset faces. And I'm doing that on the bottom one too. Now I want to extrude them a little bit in, but I want both of them to go in at the same time. So what we can do is hold Alt on the keyboard when we hit the E key, and we'll hit extrude faces along normals, holding Shift and moving down a little bit. We'll set this side in and this side in at the same time instead of having to do them individually and then trying to match them. So I'm going to tap 2 on the keyboard in order to go back into edge select mode. Holding Alt on the keyboard, I'm going to click this ring and Shift Alt to click this ring so I get both of them. Tabbing back out, Control A, and let's apply the scale real quick. So Control A is where you can apply a bunch of stuff. We need the scale so that when we bevel in a second, it comes out right. Back in edit mode, I'm going to Control B in order to extrude these out somewhere around there, probably. I'm going to Shift D in order to duplicate so that we have a separate copy. Right click to release it. P on the keyboard is to separate. I guess that's why it's there, separate. We're going to separate by selection. Tab out because you'll have both selected. Tap this middle. I'll actually tap that ring and let's hit H to hide it for now. Tap the barrel, tab back into edit mode, 2 back into edge select, and we're going to go through and alt select every other line. So shift alt click. Or you can do everyone if you want to. How would it look? You can either do everyone or every other one if you want. I'm going to do everyone, I think. Nah, not bad. Alright, I'm going to Control B and bevel that in a little bit. I can't see well enough to tell how many lines there are, so I'm just going to scroll down on my mouse wheel just in case. Oh, yeah, that's good, that's good. So right about there looks dynamite. So now I'm going to Alt E again, extrude along normals, and just drop them in a little bit like that. Yeah, doing every one of them looks pretty good. Now we can Alt H to bring back our little barrier thing. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to add a modifier. So the modifier I'm going to add is this solidify right here. Now if you do the thickness this way, it'll start feeding itself in. So like you can see it's kind of getting thicker on the inside. But if you do it a negative number, like this negative 0.025 for instance, now we got a little thing on that that's too thick. Negative 0.015. Good enough. Good enough. So back into editing this one. 3 to face select. Let's select this top face and we'll do something similar. We'll shift D and move it straight up. That way it's just copied this plane right here. We're not actually going to separate this one. I'm just going to scale it down. And then hitting E to extrude down. It's still too big. Clicking this top face, holding Control on the keyboard and tapping the plus sign is how you increment, or not increment, but grow your selection basically, so it goes from the one you got and then highlights everything around it. So I'm going to scale it on everything but the Z axis, so Shift Z. And then that looks like a cork. So G to grab it, Z to move it straight down. Line it up about there. G to grab it again. Shift Z to move it everywhere but down. And then there's a little cork for it. So one thing we will need to do is, this is already connected, but these two are separate objects. So highlight the ring and then shift click to highlight the barrel. Control J, and now they are one. What the hell happened? Control Z. Oh. Make sure you apply your modifier first. So let's apply that. Now select the ring. Shift click. Control J. One object. Huzzah. So let's texture this bad boy. So into our polygon pack. Into the free side of textures. And what looks good for the barrel? So let's A to select everything. Might do a Shift Alt click here because I don't really want these. You know what? I'm just going to click this face and then Control plus to get everything, because doing it that way, since these are technically separated, they're not actually connected to each other. They're one object, but their actual things are not connected. We can just Control plus and gather everything. Oh, see how that didn't actually get it either. But this is fine. Let's just apply this material. Hop into material view. Ooh. Let's right click and UV unwrap. Smart UV project. Boom. That looks awful. What would be the best material that we've got? That looks not bad. I think that's gonna be my winner right there. I'm gonna just smart UV project. Ooh, hey, yeah, it looks not bad. Probably looked better like that. Anyway, that looks good. So now what we can do is we can click one of these, shift click one of these, and doing the same control and plus sign thing. What? Did I have something selected up top? I must have had this face selected too. So making sure you only got these selected and it should work with the control plus. So let's go find a rusty material. That looks good. Right click and just smart UV project all these. That'll work. That looks decent. It looks good. I like it. If you wanted to, you could go back in between each one and put a different, like a darker wood to add more texture pop or detail or whatever. I'm going to just leave it like this. So I'm going to export FBX to the desktop, and this is going to be crate. Over in the right, I'm going to make sure that I'm limited to selected objects. And under geometry, I'm going to make sure the smoothing is to the face. Then we'll export. And if you want to, you can save this as crate.blend. Ignore that I've got other ones here. It's because I've second time recording this one too. So now we can delete that. And then the next thing we want to make is let's do a... Did I call that a crate? That's a barrel. I'm an idiot. Let's save this as barrel. And then I'll just rename the other one out. So now that we've talked about a crate, let's do a crate. So let's Shift A to add a cube. Scale it down to roughly crate-like size. Going into front orthographic view, tapping G and then Z on the keyboard. Can move it up to about floor level. Tab into edit mode, and with all the faces selected, we can tap I on the keyboard. Now doing it only once does nothing, but if we tap it one more time, then we're insetting each individual face. So inset will connect everything. It'll try to inset from everything that's connected automatically, but if you tap it twice, then it'll go treat everything as its own individual object. You've just got one thing selected. So about there's looking good, maybe a little bit more. So we can Alt E and extrude faces along the normals and pull back, and that is a good way to get everything going in all at once. Because when you extrude by the normals, it takes whatever the front face is, and if you're pushing your mouse up, it like moves it out like that, and if you're pulling your mouse back, it takes it in like that. You don't want to go too far, otherwise, oh, that looks kind of cool actually, but that's not fitting our purpose. But they will overlap with each other, so I'm just gonna leave it right here. And that's our crate. That's a crate right there, that quickly. So now to texture this bad boy, let's go get that free wood right here. And that's looking pretty rough, so let's go through and select all this. Remember, Shift Select will let you select multiple things, and then I'm going to grow the selection with Control and the plus sign because I want to get those interior faces and this one up here. And looks like it's not gonna be able to. Let's just Shift Select this one. If I do the Control plus one more time, it'll start getting these big faces I don't want. Now let's apply this white material. So I'm using this one for the face and then this one for the base. Now what we can do is right click and Smart UV project all of those. And they're looking a bit rough. Let's just go through and unwrap. Nope. Smart UV project. Nope. I think these look fine like that. That looks fairly crate-like. But I'm gonna go through and just unwrap each one of these. That looks good. Doing them individually seems to work a little bit better than if you tried to. At least for me, maybe it'll work for you. Let's try it right here right quick and see what happens if we try to unwrap just all of them. Yeah, see, it kind of does all that. So just one at a time. Once you get into the rhythm, it doesn't take too terribly long. So just left click, right click, UV unwrap, unwrap. Left click, right click, UV unwrap, unwrap. And then the top one. And then if you wanted to, what you could do is go into edge select. No, let's do face select. Alt click right on one of those lines. And you can get all these interior rings and then just Smart UV project right there. So if we did that on every... The reason you got to get on that line is because if you do it right here, it'll just select everything. But if you Alt and click this line, then you can control the ring direction. Smart UV project. Smart UV project. I'm not holding shift as I'm clicking the next line. That way it's just getting the ones I'm after. And that looks decent. I like it. I'm digging it. Not going to worry too much about the bottom. Nope, I am going to worry about the bottom because I am just a tedious-minded person. And that's dynamite. Oh, this interior one didn't even have. There we go. And there's our crate. That's a crate. That's a crate if I ever saw one. So we can right file, export, FBX, and then this one can actually be called crate. Ooh, but it'll overlap. Alright, I haven't renamed the other one. This one's going to be barrel, and I'll just have to deal with that later. Alright, export that out. And then save this as... We got barrel. We can save it as the crate, because we already saved the other one. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So let's delete it. Now let's add in a vase. So let's Shift A and add in a cylinder. One into front orthographic. Scale this down with the S. Scale it up on the Z. On the Z, probably about there. G to grab it, Z to move it up. It's awful big. So that looks good. That'll be fun. Alright, and then we will tab into edit mode. 3 on the keyboard to go into face select. Let's inset this top face. And then E to extrude it down. Not too far. If you need to readjust, don't right click. Here, let me show you something real quick. So if I E to extrude and then I'm like, oh, I can't see how far down I need to go, and I right click to get out of it, usually that undoes whatever you're doing, but with extrusions, it still applied it. So it's still like I extruded it. So don't hit E again or else you'll have like double faces. So there's one right here and then there's got to be another one somewhere. Anyway, you get the point. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to E to extrude it down. The good thing about extrusions though is once it's done, you can grab it and move it around as much. You don't have to actually 100% set it in place on the first go, so you can just grab it with G and then move it around. So I'm going to add a loop cut right about here, and doing one on the inside too. I'm going to face select this bottom one and the one on the inside, and I'm going to S to scale it on everything but the G, everything but the Z, and just scale it in like that. So let's add another loop cut right here towards the top. 3 to go into face select, Alt, and we can click that line in order to get all these. Alt E, extrude faces along normals, and just bring that out a touch. Let's select all these top faces. You'll have to do it twice, so Alt click one of these lines and then Shift Alt click another one, and then we can turn on proportional editing, which will bring up this circle and allow you to easier adjust things and it stay relative to each other. So that's looking decent. So what we'll add now is we'll make sure this is selected, and we'll add a modifier of a bevel. And what this does is it just tightens up those corners, makes them look a little bit nicer. We can add another segment to it right here to get it really nice and sharp looking. And then we'll apply that, and then we can add a subdivision surface modifier. Right click and shade smooth, and then that's looking pretty vase-like to me. Really, if you didn't want to add the subsurf, you don't have to, because it looks pretty decent. I'm going to. Look at that nice rounded off. So let's apply that also, and it's got some fairly nice topology. Let's go find the texture I'm going to use for this one. I think it's this plaster one. Looks pretty good. Minus the stretching, but we can fix that. Tab into edit mode. A to select everything. Right click Smart UV Project. Boom. Now if you wanted to get fancy, you could even do like a little separate one right here. I'm going to leave it like that. I think it looks dynamite. So I'm going to save as, and this is vase. Yes, I know it's already been there. File, and we're going to export. That's vase. We're going to make sure that it still says limit to selected objects, and geometry still says face smoothing. We're good. So let's go in to our map. And then in level assets, let's right click and create a new folder called props. And then we can import all 3 of those. So there's barrel, that is a crate, and then there's crate, that is a barrel, and then vase. Open. I'm going to just leave all this just like that. And then now we got our things in the map. And we can start kind of decorating where we want things to go. Now none of it has a real texture, but we'll fix that. I think we already got the textures we need to, don't we? Yeah, for the vase we do. Let's see, I'll use the dungeon wall for now. So I'm going to open up the vase and just use it. I'm going to double click and open it up because if we edit it in here, we don't have to edit each one. So let's see, this is dungeon wall. And it won't stay like that, but that's good for now. Yeah, it blends too much into the wall for it to stay that way. But let's go into the the barrel crate. Let's see what theirs looks like. So let's do walnut. I mean, it doesn't look terrible. Oak. Let's see. Pine. Ooh. But that will do for now. Now into our crate. Let's see what the wood looks like on this. Oh, it's on the thing. If you have something pop up like this, that's because the normals didn't get inverted. What we could do is just double click and open up this material and just click two-sided and apply it. And then that fixes that. So for this one, let's see. I think this is the other wood. Pine? Pine doesn't look bad. It doesn't look good, but it doesn't look bad. So then that means this is that one, and Unreal comes with this nice rust material. And these will work as placeholders for the textures. We'll get all the textures from Blender that we used, but just for now, that'll be fine. So now you can kind of decorate your levels up a little bit, throw things around, rotate them and scale them. Stack them, etc. And that's looking good. So let's do a few more props, and then we'll start working on transferring it all over. So next thing we can do is a table. So a table I'm going to do. Let's go to Google and just look up medieval tables. Why not? That looks decent. That looks nice. So we're just getting kind of an idea of, because it's good to use reference images. That looks nice. Just an idea of what other people are doing and how we can make it look. So, alright, so let's go Shift A. Let's add cube. Scale it down on the Z. Scale it on the X. Scale it on the Z one more time, real slowly, like, alright. Kind of a long table, shift it on the Y like that. And then this looks good for one segment of it. Let's Control A to apply the scale, and then over here we can add a modifier. Let's add the array modifier, and what this thing does is fascinating. So it'll add to it. It adds pieces to it, like it duplicates it and adds it next to it based on this factor. So we're going to add, instead of it being just 1, which is exactly one length away, let's do 1.1, and then we'll have this little gap. Then we can do 5, maybe? How does that look? That's not a table, that's 6, 7, 8. Is that a table? 10 to be safe. I'm doing 10. And then, yeah, that looks good. So right here, I'm going to apply that. Then we can out of edit mode, Shift A to add another cube, scale it down, G to grab it and move it up, scale it on everything but the Z axis, and then move it underneath, scale it on the X, scale it on the Z, kind of move it into place. Tab into edit mode, select this face, I to inset it, G to grab it, oh no, turn proportional editing off, G to grab it, and Z to move it down like that, just to add a nice little underlip to it like that. Then we'll inset it one more time, S, and we can scale it like so on the X-axis. G and Z to grab it one more time and pull it down. E to extrude it down to about just above the floor, so about here. E to extrude another segment, and the reason I'm doing it that way is because once it hits the floor, then we can S to scale that and give it a nice little footing. Just like, whoa. Let's S and scale that on the Y, scale it down a little bit. So with that done, let's grab both of these sides and I scale it in X, and we can delete those faces. 2 to go into edge select, grab this edge and shift click that edge. F will add a face. Click, shift click F. Did I hit the wrong one? I hit the wrong one. Click, shift click F. Click, shift click F. I mean, it looks a little weird, but it works. What I can do is, let's grab this face and maybe pull it up a little bit, and then grab the whole thing and move it, grab the whole thing and move it down a little bit. Scale it in on the Z, in on the X, and we'll just extrude it all the way across. Why not? Kind of a funky looking table. I like it. I'm digging it. Not so much the feet. But it'll work. So we can make sure that that modifier is applied. Control J to join it to the table, and then let's figure out which one of these would look the best for it. Smart UV project. Looks good on everything but here, so let's see. If I shift click all these top face, crap. Just all these top faces. And then I control plus to move it in. I should be able to get just, yeah. And then let's smart UV project that. Sometimes just messing with the unwrapping. Smart UV project, that didn't change nothing. Maybe a different material. Let's apply this one. Ooh, that looks nice. I like it. I'm digging it. Yeah, that'll work. And you know what? I'm gonna shift select all this and then control plus plus and apply it here too, because that looks not completely awful. When you're limited on textures, it's a pain to try to make it work sometimes. But the important thing is learning how to just make stuff, I think. Yeah, I don't like how thick this is. Let's S and then scale it on the Z, and we can just kind of shrink it down. Shrink-a-dink. I'm gonna alt select it, and then maybe we'll make this one that too. Ooh, what the hell? Yeah, just play around with your texturing. I think that's about as good as it can. But there's a table! Hey! Alright, so let's save as table. And then we will export FBX of our table. Selected objects is still set. Geometry still smoothing the face. Export. Alright. Ah, crap. There's going to be an issue with that export. Let's select the table. Over here in this square right here is the object properties. And this is what it's going to register as its world origin. So every time you place it, it'll be off center. So if we just set this back, just like that. And then we'll save. And then we'll re-export it. So the good thing is just re-exporting it with the same name, it overwrites the previous one. So, no, disaster avoided. Let's jump in Unreal, import, where's that table? Alright, just like that. Double click and open it. Ooh. So now what you're seeing would be fixed by the double layered material thing, but I'm going to show you another fix. So let's go back into Blender, get our table, tab into edit mode, A to select everything, and if we hit Control, Shift, and N on the keyboard, this will recalculate the normals. And I can never remember if it's supposed to be inside or outside, so I'm going to just test it. I'm going to export it out, go back into Unreal Engine, and then import the table one more time. Yes, I want to overwrite. And then no, it's all, now it's all jacked up. So that means it needs to be on the outside. So Control Shift in one more time, and then check that little box, and then it'll flip it. So we can tab back out of edit mode, export the FBX, same name, same game, back into Unreal, re-import that table. Yes, overwrite existing asset, and hey, look at that, it's all working just fine. So for the material, let's see how this walnut looks. Not terrible, not too terrible. But I think the walnut should go on top like that. That looks dynamite. Alright, and then we can do oak here. Yeah, why not? That looks fine. Let's save everything real quick. So now we got a table we can start decorating around. And it does look kind of crap. But let's see how everything looks in game. But hey, we're getting props. That's the important part, right? It doesn't actually look that bad. I guess we could go ahead and do a sword and a shield, get rid of this placeholder crap right here. Let's save everything, minimize, and then back to Blender. We'll delete the table. First up, a shield. So I'm going to add in a cube. And I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to scale it on the y-axis to be a little bit more flatter, I guess. And then 1 to go into front orthographic, move it up, and then just kind of scale it until it's somewhere around a small buckler size. That's looking decent. Tapping the decimal point over on the number pad will zoom in your view. Tab into edit mode, face select, and let's add with Control R 5 loop cuts. Just like that. That ought to be good. So I'm going to tap 3 on the keyboard and go into face select. Shift click to select all these. Did I get that last one? No, I did. I'm going to I to inset, but I'm going to tap I one more time so that it insets them all together. And then I'm going to E to extrude it just a little bit in. I'm going to go into edge select by tapping 2. I'm going to get this one in the top, right in the middle. And actually I'm going to get the ones on the side. I'm going to go into proportional editing. And just kind of scale it up. Like that. Kind of play with the wheel until you find the look you like. I'm digging it. That looks fine. I'm going to go underneath, grab the one directly in the middle, G to grab it, and Z to move it down. Scale my wheel out so that it's getting everything like that. And now it's gotten kind of big. So we'll just scale it back down, scale it out on the X. That's looking fine. Now what we can do is we can go into face select and grab this face and this face with a shift click. Up here in the proportional editing, if we click this little drop down, we can do connected only. And then it'll just kind of pull from its connections back instead of doing everything all at once. So I'm going to G and grab everything on the Y. Just scale in that wheel just to add a nice little bit of curvature to the shield. That's looking pretty good. So I'm going to go into 2 to edge select all these right here. I'm going to tab out, Control A, and apply the scale real quick just to make sure our bevel with Control B works the way we intend. So let's go about there. 3 to face select, shift click all the ones right there. Then we can Alt E to extrude on the normals and just take them in a little bit. Just like that. That's looking good. Now we can add a modifier of the bevel, just like we had on the other one. Increase its segments. Kind of a big shield. Let's scale it down a little bit. Then over here in the back, what we can do is press K and hold shift. K is the knife tool and it will let you cut a line across whatever you're targeting. So holding shift locks it to the center. So see, I can free flow up these lines, but as soon as I hit shift it goes directly in the middle. So I want it to be in the middle, so I'm going to hold shift, hold shift, hold shift. And then hit enter, and now we have a vertex there. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here. So shift, now that it has a new central line, it works. And shift, 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 enter. Probably the harder way of doing things, or the more tedious, because we don't really need this middle one. We can X and then dissolve edges, and then they just go right back away. But if we grab this one, and then Control B to bevel it out, then we can extrude out a tiny bit. Oop, disable that proportional editing. I want to scale them, but they're all connected. So if we click this little interlocking ring right here and go to individual origins, now each one will scale by itself instead of trying to pull towards each other. But I don't want them to scale sideways, so Shift X. G, grab with Y. Now I do want them to kind of scale towards each other, so I'm going to add a medium point, and then just like that. E to extrude, scale them in like that. E to extrude and scale them in. Now I'm going to rotate each individual one. So I'm going to go into face select and grab these, turning back on the proportional editing, and R, Y, so that I can nope, must be X. So that I can rotate them just like that. Grab these, R to rotate, X to only want to rotate on the X axis. Make sure you're only rotating the pieces that you want to rotate. Just like that. And then if we hit 2 to go back into face select, click these two faces and these two faces, F. This one and this, nope, this one and this one, F. This one and this one, F. These two, F. And then we have our little holder-y thing, whatever you would call this. I'm going to scale it on the X, but I only want it to be that. About there looks nice. Yeah, there's a shield for us. So this one's going to be a little bit more complicated to texture, but let's do it anyway. So I want, let's see. I want this to be one texture. I'm not going to apply any of these textures. These all kind of, none of these really worked very well. But the ones inside Unreal will work fine. I'm going to apply my bevel real quick first. And then reselect everything because I forgot that that's going to deselect everything. So with that selected, let's go right here to the material editor and we'll add a new one. This will be the shield base, because the first material you apply will apply to everything. Even if you have something selected, if I change this, you'll see it's all connected. But right now we're just identifying that there will be multiple. So we'll have, let's see, another one of a new, let's see, shield wood. So this will be the wooden portion right here. And then we'll do another one that is the shield grip. And then we'll assign the shield grip to the ones we have selected. Let's Control I and we can invert whatever we have selected. So we had this selected. When we Control I, we have now everything else selected except that. So I'm going to take the shield base and then assign it to everything. Then I'm going to click each face here in the middle. and Control plus one time. And then I'm going to assign the shield wood material to it. And just so we can double check, I'm going to just make this kind of a wooden color. Let's see, the shield base will be kind of a metallic grayish color. And then the shield grip can be like a kind of light yellowish, kind of a leathery. Yeah, that looks good. Leatherish kind of color. And there we have it. There's our shield. It looks decent. I like it. Oh, one more thing we can do. Let's tab into edit mode real quick and grab this face. And with proportional editing on, connected only, R to rotate on the Z axis. I'm holding shift is why it's going so slow. Just kind of rotate it in so it has more of a realistic flow to it. We can grab them and pull them back a little bit more if we like. Give it more of a curve on it. That's looking good. I'm going to save this as shield. Save. Export. FBX. Nope. It's going to be shield. Limited to selected objects. Geometry. Yep. Good to go. Oh. Damn it. Let's take it back to the center like that, because this is basically your attachment point, and I want that to be lined up just about right on my handle. That'll make it easier to manipulate in Engine. So let's now re-export that. Boom. The cool thing about doing it with polyart like that instead of these textures is when I come in here, I'll create a new folder in the main called character weapons or character gear or whatever you want to call it. Double click and open it up. Import shield. And for this material, let's do create new material. Wait, do not create material. Make sure this is checked. Create new materials. Import all. Shield has degenerate tangents. It looks fine. I don't know what its problem was, but hey, look, our shield is already textured in Engine, just like we had it in the thing. Which is the benefit of doing polyart, is it gets transferred, whereas those polygon textures don't. Even if we tried to import all the textures when we created this stuff, it would just bring in white materials. So we'll go and get all the materials later on, but I just wanted to show you this. So if we go into our player, go to our shield stand-in, and then replace it with our shield. Oh. Let's rotate it around. And now let's jump in. Yeah, it looks decent. Now we're gonna make a new sword real quick. Let's do a sword. So I'll delete. Wait. I'm gonna save real quick, and then I'll delete. So for a sword. Ow. let's Shift A to add in a cube. Scale it down. Scale it on the Y. Scale it on the X to about how big we would want the handle to be. Scale it on the Y again. Tab into edit mode. Let's grab this top face. E to extrude. Gonna right click to cancel it out and then just S to scale it out a little bit. Alright, and then once it's done there, I'll S to scale again on the X axis. E to extrude up a little bit for our guard. Inset the face. Scale that on the Y about there. G to grab it on the Z axis and pull it up. And do the same. Oh, that's terrible. Grab maybe the edges right here and pull them down. Yeah, why not? Alright, now back to this face select. We'll inset it one more time to something small. S and scale it in on the X because we don't need a blade that big or that wide. We'll E to extrude that all the way up. And then we can go into tab 2. Just like we did with the K for the knife. Holding shift, I want to cut right across the center of the very top. 2 to go into face select, or edge select. Grab this edge in the middle. G and Z, and then put the point on our blade. I'm going to just bring these back up. If you ever move something off of line with an edge, but you want to bring it back up to exactly flush, if we go right here, this is the snapping tool inside of Blender. So I'm going to click this and I'm going to change it to edge detection. And then clicking this little magnet icon, now that I have both of these selected, if I hit G to grab them and then Z to only move them on the Z axis, I can target this one and they automatically snap up and are perfectly level and flat with it. So let's go into face select, grab these, turn that magnet back off, otherwise it will mess with things. And then scale on the X a little bit. Alt E, extrude faces along normals. Scale out a little bit further. Oh. Go into individual origins. Scale it down. We can go back into that. Kind of funky looking, but it'll work. Let's go into edge selection and grab our 4 corners of our handle. Control B to bevel that in. I'm going to just pull it real far. You may have noticed that I kind of overlapped it and it all looks absolutely dreadful. But if we go right here to the bevel tool and clamp the overlap, then it clamps it right back down where it should be. But you notice that even though I beveled it, it still only has 4. So let's increase the segments and give ourselves a nice little rounded handle. I'm going to go back into face select and grab this and just, whoa, turn that off. Move it up a tiny bit so that I can E to extrude, scale that out, E to extrude, down a little bit, E to extrude. extrude again and scale it in. Just to be the pommel, I think that's called. Alright. So, the way we can put the sharp side of our blade is let's Control R to add a loop cut all the way around the long side of the blade. And deselect all these down here. So shift clicking to deselect. I want to make sure that this up here stays selected. Crap, don't select that. And then I'm going to do Alt S to scale on the normals. But not, no. Alright, so S, Shift Z. I don't want to scale it on the Z just yet, so that's all I'm done there. The scaling along normal doesn't seem to work that well for that one. So let's grab this top vertice. I've gone into vertice select mode. Grab that very top one, the one directly in the middle. G to grab it, Z to move it straight up, and then just to wherever it looks about in line with the rest of the thickness of the blade. And what we can do, we can grab this face and just kind of scale it on the Y. Scale it on the Y. Usually you can. I'll just grab this and scale that on the Y. Apparently not. Every once in a while it'll let you do things, and then other times it seems to not want to. So I'm just going to grab these and move them out individually. You do the same thing with all these. Maybe it'll work with... Nope. So we'll just grab these vertices, G, Y, and just kind of thicken the blade up a little bit. So I want it to be in line with this one though, so we can do something similar and snap it to a vertex. So now that I have those top three selected, if I G, Y, and then target, maybe you gotta do them one at a time. So I got that one selected, G, Y. It helps if you turn the magnet on. And then they'll be straight in line with that one. So I'm going to do the same thing in the back. Don't forget to turn your magnet on. Makes a big difference. Makes it to where it'll actually do what it's supposed to. Make sure you got the right one selected though. You don't want to be snapping into that front one. And then, you know what, this one, let's do polyart again. So we'll just go into, let's get rid of this. So let's do new. This one will be blade. And we'll make it kind of a grayish color. Maybe like a dark gray. Then we'll do, this is blade 2. No, I'm kidding. This is sharp. Blade sharp blade, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to make it kind of a grayish, but not as dark. And then we'll just select all these faces. And then assign it there. And it kind of gives it a nice little decal thingy. So let's click here and here and here and here and maybe all around right here. Just trying to figure out where we can control click, and hey, that worked out decent. If you get tired of holding shift, there is another option. You can hit C on the keyboard and it'll bring this little wheel that you can increase the size of by scrolling down, or shrink by scrolling up. And then just wherever you click, that'll get selected also. So C, and you don't have to hold shift, it automatically assumes you're doing a selection like this. But do be careful because it'll select whatever. Oh, but if you select something you don't want, like say, ah crap, oh no, what do I do? I don't have to deselect everything, I can just middle click. So on the mouse wheel, just click it down. So this is going to be the guard. Make it a gold. We're royalty. Yeah. So we will Alt and click this to select the whole handle. And that will be handle. And it's going to be almost black. I think that's what the blade is though. It's barely different. Let's lighten this up a little bit. And then for this, let's just do that yellow also. That looks good. But now we need to make it kind of his size. So let's just scale it down. Kind of look at it. So generally the way you would kind of size a sword, at least in my experience, is you want it to be from the ground to the blade. It should be about armpit height. This is what I used to go by when I would get swords. So you can just kind of scale it around till you find what looks nice. That's looking nice to me. I'm gonna just drop it back. Oh, turn that back off. Let's drop it back until the origin is about there. That'll be fine. Select it. I'm gonna save this as sword. And then we will export FBX. And this will be sword. Make sure selected objects, smoothing face, export. So let's go in here. We'll import that sword now. And just like that is fine. Sword has weird tangents also. I don't know what that's about. Let's go get our sword stand-in and just replace it with our sword. And that's looking just about right. Save everything real quick. Alright, let's check our character out. So we got keys and we got gold. Do we already have the check key? Did we already do the door? Yeah. Alright, let's make a key. Why not? Key's pretty quick, pretty simple. Alright, so let's just Shift A and we will add a cylinder. 16 might be a bit much. Let's bump that down to 8 because it's going to be small anyway. So we'll scale this bad boy down to about there. Scale it on the Z the rest of the way. Shift Z, doesn't need to be that big. That's good. 3 to go into face select. Let's select. Oh. So if your orientation is messed up, just select something that you want to look at, tap that decimal point, and it'll make it to where you rotate around. So I'm going to shift select that, inset both of these, inset, there we go. And I'm going to delete by tapping X and delete the faces. 2 to go into edge select, Alt click that one, Shift Alt click that one, and then right click. I do not have loop tools. Alright, so let's go into edit, preferences. We need an add-on. It's already installed with it, so let's just go find loop tools and just enable it. And then you ain't even gotta restart the thing, just right click loop tools because we need to bridge. Alright, and now I'm going to Control R to add a loop cut here and here. 3 to go back into face select and grab both of these. E to extrude it out to about here. E to extrude it out 1, 2, 3 more times. Grab all 3 of these faces. I. We want to inset each individual one. S to scale on the Z. Pull it down to about there. And then on the X, if they're not functioning that way, remember to check that you have your individual origin set up. And then we'll just do like that. Maybe grab this middle one and pull it out a little bit further. And then this one, maybe move it up a little bit just to give it some alteration. Oh, that's not far enough though. And for some reason, it just looks weird only having 3. So let's just loop cut and add in one more. Face select. I to inset. S to scale on the Z, roughly matching it up. S to scale on the X, roughly matching it up. And then just to about there. Then we can grab all these points right here and just scale them down. Grab this interior ring. Just scale it towards each other. And there's a key. Maybe scale that down a little bit. That's looking good. You know, no, I don't like that. Just like that's fine. So let's add the material. This one's just gonna be kind of a, oh, let's make it like a bronze key. I like that. Bronze is kind of like a brownish red, right? I like it. Now let's go into front orthographic view. Grab this thing and just move it up on the red line. That way whenever we place it in the world, it won't be clipping halfway through. We can just set it where we want it. Is it too big of a key? Let's S scale it on everything but the Z axis. Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Kind of fat here. How about what we can do is do this side instead. Just kind of select all of it. And we'll just do that. That looks a bit better. Alright, and then we'll save this as key. And then we'll export this as key. Yep, everything's still the same. Export. So let's import our key now. Go into our key blueprint, and then we can replace that donut with our key. It did snap down, but that's because of my snap settings up here. So see when I first drag it in. Now if you wanted to, what we could do is instead of having that orange kind of copper material, we could make it a rusty key. Oh, but we forgot to unwrap the faces. If you do want to use a texture, just make sure you unwrap those faces. So the way you can do that is just go in, select everything, right click, UV unwrap, smart UV project, okay. And then we can just export it back out as key. Go to import. Re-import our key, yes. And then, that's looking good. Gold bag. Let's do a bag real quick. So let's, no, let's get out of edit mode. X to delete that. And now a bag. So let's do from a cylinder. 8 ought to be enough. Scale this down. Decimal point 1 on the number pad. Scoot this up. Scale it down a bit further. Set it on the floor. Tab into edit mode. Select this bottom face and scale it in. Add a loop cut. Move it down to about here. Scale it out. Add another loop cut about here. Scale it out a little bit more. Add another loop cut about here and scale it in. Add another loop cut and scale it in. Grab this top face and just kind of move it down and then scale it in a little bit. Inset it. And then move it down. No, let's go ahead and extrude. And then that's pretty much the bag. What we can do is, so that we can add a little bit of a lump to this, we'll go into face select mode. Okay. We'll inset this one, inset it, and then one more time. Go into proportional editing, and then just kind of give it a little lump like it's holding something. Shade that smooth. Let's add a material. So we'll do the bag first. So this is BAG. And it's going to be a nice little brown bag. Oh, that's not brown though. Let's see, about there. You know what? That's fine right there. Right there is fine. Let's add another one. This one's going to be the gold. So gold. And it's going to be green. No, I'm kidding. Gold. Kind of about there. And then we can just tab into edit mode, face select with that middle one right in the middle. I just pointed at my TV screen like a fool. Control plus sign until we get everything selected. And then there we go. There's our gold bag. We can kind of fix this a little bit more. Let's grab this outermost edge and then just kind of in a little bit so that it looks less weird. That looks pretty good. If you want to, you can add a subdivision surface modifier. And then kind of scale this in as much as you wanted. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to just keep that. And it still looks nice. It's hovering. Let's just drop it onto the floor right about there. Looks good. So there's our gold pouch. You know what we could do? Let's grab this line right here. Control A real quick to set the scale. Control B. And then I'm going to extrude that a little, a little bit. Control plus to increase the gathered amount. And then we'll just add a tie. And this can be a darker brown. Yeah, it looks a little bit nicer. It's cute. I like it. Alright, now I'm good with it. Alright, save as gold big dot blend. Export FBX. This is a gold bag. Selected objects. Everything's still the same. Inside Unreal. Import into our interaction system our gold bag. Create the materials as you please. Open up our gold bag. And then get it. So now we can set this around and then they look at that. Alright, so we got, let's save everything real quick. Now let's browse to this asset, because we need a doorway. We need a wall with a doorway, so let's go back into the Blender. Delete this. And we're actually going to go import our dungeon wall. Now mine's probably going to look funny or lacking a texture. That's because I had to re-import it. So I'll just delete that real quick and go find applying existing material. Alright, it's not gonna let me apply it. So I'm gonna have to just apply a new one. Actually, you know what? It doesn't matter. Because we're gonna go into wireframe mode anyway. So if you hold Z on the keyboard and it brings up this shading option, you can go into wireframe mode. And this way we can kind of see our character. So I'm going to shift, am I in edit? No. Alright, I'm going to shift A, and I'm going to add a cube. And I'm going to move it up about here. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up the bottom line of the cube just a little bit under this one. Because if I have it up here, when we cut it out, it's going to have a little bit of a lip. So I'm going to move it just so. And I'm going to scale it a little bit down on the Z axis. Move it down back where it was. Control A to apply the scale. Tab into edit mode and let's add some loop cuts. Probably 5 again would be good. Let's go into edge select mode, and then I'm going to go right here to the top middle one. Back into front orthographic with the proportional editing on, G and Z. Scroll this wheel out nice like that. And we'll just move it up a little bit above their head. It doesn't have to be too high. Somewhere about there looks probably decent. I'm going to grab these on the sides just because I'm not digging how kind of sloped it is, and I'm just going to pull those down and then scale them in. What is happening? Oh, I can't scale it. Oh, because I'm dumb. Anywho, that's fine. Maybe we'll scale the bottom out if we can. Just something to... Oh. No, it's fine. It's fine. Maybe grab these edges. Just a nice and... Just to round off that a little bit. It looks better. I like it. So back into solid mode. And we'll put this right in the middle. Or actually, you know, you don't have to put it right in the middle. You can put the door anywhere you want. So you can have multiple walls. You can have some that's like right here. But the way we're going to cut this out is we're going to highlight this door. I'm going to Control A and apply, Control A and apply just in case. I'm going to highlight the wall. Under modifiers, I'm going to find a Boolean. So a Boolean will let you cut objects. So for instance, when I grab the object that I want to cut with, so you apply the Boolean to the object you want to cut, and then the object here is what you're cutting with. And you'll see how that little orange line just appeared. That means that that's missing now. So when I apply this, and I get rid of this, hey! Here's Manny. Haha. Alright. So I'm not going to get rid of this. What I'm going to do is actually export this FBX as a door cutter. And now I'm going to export this as a doorway wall? Doorway wall. That works fine. Back into Unreal. We'll import doorway wall. Open it up. And for this one, we don't need it to create new materials, so do not create, do not import textures, do not pass go, do not collect $200. So we'll double click and open this one up because we need to apply that dungeon wall material to it. And then if we come in here and turn on the snapping again, then with this wall selected, make sure this is selected in our content browser, we can right click, replace selected actors with our doorway. Huzzah! Let's go in here, that's just props. Where's our interactable door? Hey, there it is. So we'll say it's locked. Let's give it a try. Let's see how everything's coming together so far. Nothing. But I found a key and some gold. And now... Okay. Oh no, I can't get through. It's because of the collision on the wall. So what we can do is go in and edit the doorway. Just to show you what I'm talking about, we'll go under show the simple collision, and then you see it's all kinds of rough. So instead of trying to configure the collisions, we're just going to go to collision complexity, use complex collision, because if I show you the complex and turn off the simple, you can just see it's working. And if I get rid of this, now we can go through our door. And it's the perfect height. Huzzah! So now what we can add, we can actually use this. Let's make this a door. So let's scale it in on the Y. And that's why I didn't delete it, it's because it'll fit perfectly what we need. Scale it down a little bit on the Z so that I can move it up a little bit. Scale it just a little bit on the X because I don't want it to be a 1-to-1. I'm going to tab into edit mode and select all these faces. All these faces. Let's scale it a little bit on the... Let's actually scale it a little bit on the Y, so that it at least sits pretty in this gap. Just like that is pretty good. And we'll just make it flush. That'll be fine. Alright, so let's go back into edit mode. And we'll I one more time, because I want to inset everything together just like this. And I'm going to Alt-E to extrude along normal, and just pull it in a little bit like that. Somewhere about there is looking good. And then what we can do, we can take just this, Shift D to duplicate, P to separate by selection, tab out of edit mode and click the cube 2 that we just created. grab it with the G, move it out on the Y, scale it down, scale it on the Z, move it up. Now we're going to add a modifier to solidify it. And we'll just, let's take that off real quick. And we will Control A to apply scale, and then add the solidify modifier. If you ever add a solidify modifier and it's like, why aren't you increasing in size as I click it? Then you might just need to apply your scale. I'm gonna go 0.3 meters. That should be plenty to get through the door. Kind of move it right there. Yeah, and then we'll boolean this too. So I'm gonna select the door, add a boolean modifier using this little eyedropper, select the cube in the middle, apply that. I can delete this time. Select the door, tab into edit mode, 2 for face select, and let's just select all these right here. Well, let's make sure that we Control A and apply scale real quick, because I'm gonna bevel with Control B. I'm not beveling. Why is it not bevel? Ooh, that looks awful. Alright, let's do that. Alright, I'm being lazy. Let's just Shift A and add a cylinder while we're not in edit mode, and then we'll just move it up. Shift scale and Shift Z, G, Shift Z. Looking at it from the front. We'll set its location to be about, crap. Alright, just right there in the middle. Shift Z, scale it on the Z, grab it and move it up the Z, grab it and move it on the X over to the left, and then we can go here and grab an array modifier for it. Let's make it about 1.5, 2, 3. 3 looks good, and then we'll just add in as many as we need. Alright, so let's apply that array modifier. Selecting the bars and then selecting the door, Control J to join them. And then let's pick a side of the door. I'm just going to pick this one. Back into face select mode so I can grab both of these sides. Grab it and move it. Oop, I don't need proportional right now. Let's just move it in on the G, or on the X rather. Let's just grab that and move it down. And then right here, I'm being lazy again. Alright, let's tab out of edit mode, Shift A, and we'll get another cube, scale it down. And then move it into place. Scale it on the Y. We'll tab into edit mode, grab this front face, inset it, E to extrude once, E to extrude a second time, grab that second extruded face, and then just pull it on down like that. And you know what we could do? We could just do a mirror modifier. And we'll mirror it on the z-axis. And what you'll notice is it looks really weird. But let's select everything, because the mirror modifier works in relation to that orange dot. So it'll take everything on one side of the dot and move it to the other. So if I grab everything and then move this up, now we've got what looks kind of like a handle. I'm gonna move it way up real quick just because I'm gonna grab this. It doesn't need to be near that long. Grab everything and move it back. Now you might think, how do I make sure that it doesn't clip through it and I get it lined up just right? If you click this little button right here, this clipping, then bam. Whoa, why didn't it? Usually that stops it from being able to hit each other. I don't understand sometimes. Blender, why do you do this to me? Maybe it only works if you're trying to make sure you're not, if you're mirroring an object, I'm not sure. But there's our door handle anyway. Now it's not big enough. It's always either one or the other, isn't it? Let's just move this down a little bit. Oh, there it goes. It's because I was moving the whole thing. But if you just have a face and you didn't... Yeah, now it's combined and it won't come apart. But there's our door handle. Alright. So let's apply that mirror modifier. Select the handle, select the door, Control J. And now it's one object. So now we can go into object mode here too. Let's select these all around. Control B. Oh yeah, it's not letting me do that for some reason. Probably some stupid mistake I'm making. If it's beveling for you, then you're good to go. Mine's not for some reason. So instead of doing what I was about to do, which was bevel these out in order to create a little barrier in between, I'll just do this and select all these faces. I to inset. Alt E to extrude along normals. Whoa. Just to give the door a little bit of texture. But right here around this, I want it to look a little bit different. So I'm gonna go into vertex select mode. And then this one and this one, I'm gonna take Okay, maybe I'm not. You know what I can do? I can take all these right here, Alt E, and extrude along the normals here like that. And then now we got it that we can use. So Alt E, extrude along normals, and punch that out just a little bit. What in the world? just select everything with A and try to merge by distance. Remove 12 vertices. We got some overlap here happening. So if you have something like this going on, tab into vertex select mode with 1. Select, merge at last. There must be one on this side too. Yeah, alright. And then we'll merge at the last. Check the bottom just to make sure. Oh, there's one. So let's select, merge at last. Maybe just dissolve that vertex? Yeah, alright. What are you connected to? You're not connected to nothing. What are you? Oh, I'm dumb. I just deleted everything apart to that. Instead, let's take this one and that one and then merge at last. And then now let's take this one and merge at last. Take that and that, add all the face. Take this, and add face. Select everything, Control Shift in. Recalculate normals. Alright, well, let's try adding material to it. So let's do a kind of a darkish gray for the main of the door. So this is door base. Let's do a new one. This can be the door wood. It's gonna be a wooden door. This can be a kind of brownish color. Select this face. And we'll just assign it. Then this and this and this for good measure can all be, let's say, door metal. And we'll just make it like a dark. And then let's say this will be like a rusted, but let's just call this handle. And it can be just kind of a golden. Now we will need another one on this side, so let's add our mirror modifier. Nah, let's not add a mirror modifier. Let's just take this, Shift D, like that. Grab it and we'll move it to the other side. We can rotate it 180 degrees and then just kind of sync it up just like that. And then we got a handle on both sides at the same place. Hey, it looks good. Alright, let's save this as doorway. And we can export it also as doorway. Oh crap, no, don't export it yet. So it fits perfectly in our doorway, but if we try to export it here, it's gonna be flipping in the middle just like it's doing the other one. So let's go Shift X, or let's G to grab, and then on the X axis go to orthographic view, and wherever this is lined up with it, that's where it will rotate. So I want it to be basically right here. So now let's save and export our doorway. Export that out. Back into Unreal. Import our doorway. And you know what? Yeah, do create material. Create new materials. Import all. Yeah. If anybody knows what that means, let me know. So there's our doorway. Here's our doorway BP. Let's double click and open that up. And for our door, we'll just replace that with doorway. Now it's gonna look kind of funny, but we're gonna set the scale back to 1, 1, 1, and the location back to 0, 0. So let's go into this door. Drop it to the floor. Try to line it up as best we can. And then well, we'll fix that. Didn't do it on this side, but it did on that side for some reason. Must be the normals. We'll take a look in a second. Well, let's just see how it's working. And that's looking pretty good. I might have to do these in parts after all. Alright, I'll see y'all in the next one.